Everybody knows the story of David and Goliath, the shepherd boy who defeated a giant with just a stone. But what if I told you this battle was not about luck? There was a hidden strategy, a divine plan, and lessons that could change how you face your own giants today. This is David versus Goliath, the untold strategy behind the stone. Imagine the scene, the Valley of Elah. It's more than just a battlefield, it's a stage for a national crisis. On one hill, the army of Israel, the chosen people of God. On the other, their perennial tormentors, the Philistines, a technologically superior force armed with the secrets of iron. And striding into the valley between them is the Philistines' ultimate weapon of psychological warfare, a giant named Goliath. He wasn't just tall, he was a walking mountain of muscle and bronze, standing nearly 10 feet high. His armor alone weighed more than a man, and the shaft of his spear was as thick as a weaver's beam. He proposed a contest of champions. One man from each side would fight, and the loser's nation would become slaves to the winner. The stakes couldn't be higher. It was a battle for freedom itself. For 40 days, this terrifying ritual repeated. Every morning and every evening, Goliath would parade himself, his voice booming across the valley, mocking Israel, their king and their God. 40 days of relentless intimidation. Fear became a suffocating poison, paralyzing an entire army of trained warriors. These were brave men, veterans of other battles, but they were utterly broken. Their courage had evaporated, replaced by a gnawing dread. This fear wasn't just on the front lines. It had seeped into the very soul of the nation. An entire people stood frozen, their faith faltering in the face of an impossible enemy. The question hung in the air, had God abandoned them? And then, into this theater of despair, comes an interruption. Not a champion, not a seasoned general, but David, a young shepherd boy, sent by his father on a simple errand to bring food to his brothers. He is an outsider, unburdened by the military groupthink that had deemed the situation hopeless. He hears the same taunts the soldiers have heard for 40 days, but he perceives them differently. Where they see an unbeatable giant, David sees an arrogant mortal defying the armies of the living God. He is, by every worldly measure, ordinary, unskilled in the arts of war, overlooked and underestimated. But this is so often the pattern of God. He doesn't look for the qualified, he qualifies the called. He sends the most ordinary people to do the most extraordinary things. For 40 days, the armies of Israel were paralyzed by fear. In the valley below, one man, Goliath, held them all hostage with his words. His taunts were a form of psychological warfare designed to crush their spirit before the first sword was ever drawn. The Israelites saw an unstoppable force, a 9-foot giant clad in impenetrable bronze. They saw a battle that was already lost. But when David, a young shepherd bringing supplies to his brothers, hears the same taunts, he doesn't hear the voice of a giant. He hears an offense against his God and his people. Something righteous stirs deep within him. While everyone else saw a giant too big to fight, David's perspective, forged in the solitude of the wilderness, allowed him to see something entirely different. He saw an opportunity. David saw a target too big to miss. This shift in perspective is the key to everything. When King Saul tries to help by offering his own royal armor, David refuses. Imagine the scene. The heavy bronze, the magnificent helmet, the battle-tested sword. It was the best armor in the kingdom, but it wasn't. It didn't fit. It was cumbersome, unfamiliar. David understood a profound truth that we often forget. You cannot win your defining battles using someone else's strategy, someone else's gifts, or someone else's armor. Success isn't about imitation, it's about authentication. It's about knowing yourself so deeply that you can confidently reject a king's armor for a shepherd's sling. You win with the unique tools, talents, and faith that God has already placed in your hands. And this is where the story gets truly brilliant. David had a strategy. This was not a blind leap of faith. It was faith in action, guided by divine intelligence. First, he did what he had learned to do as a shepherd, protecting his flock from lions and bears. He studied his enemy. He analyzed Goliath from a distance. He saw that the giant's immense size and heavy armor, his greatest strengths, were also his greatest weaknesses. They made him slow, ponderous, and unable to react quickly. He noted the Philistine's helmet, likely a Greek-style design which protected the head but left a critical portion of the forehead exposed. David didn't just see a giant. He saw a slow-moving target with a fatal design flaw. Second, armed with this intelligence, he chose the right weapon. He bypassed the sword and spear, the conventional tools of war that would have required him to fight Goliath on the giant's own terms, up close and personal. Instead, he chose the sling. We often mistake the sling for a child's toy. It was anything but. In the hands of an expert, a shepherd who had spent thousands of hours perfecting his aim, the sling was a devastating long-range weapon. It could launch a projectile at over 100 miles per hour with pinpoint accuracy. It was the ancient equivalent of a sniper rifle. He then carefully selected 5 smooth stones from the brook, not because he doubted he could do it in one, but because a true professional always comes prepared. Third, David executed his plan with courage and speed. He didn't walk, hesitate, or wait for Goliath to set the pace of the battle. He ran toward the giant. This single act of aggression seized the initiative. It was unexpected. It turned David into a fast-moving target and closed the distance on his own terms. In one fluid, practiced motion, he loaded his sling, whirled it above his head, and unleashed a single well-aimed stone. It flew true, striking the one vulnerable spot he had identified. And with that, the giant, the symbol of impossible odds, the embodiment of fear itself, came crashing to the ground. David teaches us that our giants may be big, but they are not invincible. With the right perspective, a clear strategy, and the courage to use the gifts we've been given, nothing is too big to fall. So, what timeless lessons can we carry from this ancient valley into our modern lives? First, refuse to fight on your enemy's terms. Goliath expected a champion in his own image, clad in bronze, ready for a battle of brute strength he was guaranteed to win. But David was wiser. He rejected Saul's ill-fitting armor and stepped onto the battlefield with what he knew redefining the fight. The giants in our lives, anxiety, hardship, conflict, also try to set the rules. They want us to fight them with fear. David's story teaches us to change the game. Your unique skills, honed in quiet moments, are not insignificant. What you've practiced in private becomes your weapon of destiny. Second, never underestimate the power of the ordinary. A shepherd boy, a simple sling, 5 smooth stones. In the face of a national crisis, these things were utterly common, almost insignificant. But David knew their potential. He understood it wasn't about the sophistication of the weapon, but the faith of the one wielding it. God delights in using the overlooked and the humble to achieve extraordinary results. You might look at your own resources and feel they are too small for the giant you're facing. But remember, one ordinary stone, placed in the hand of an extraordinary God, is all it takes to bring a giant down. This story has echoed through millennia because it speaks to the heart of our struggle and the power of faith. If this message has inspired you, I invite you to join our community of modern-day giant slayers. Hit that like button as a declaration of faith that your giants can and will fall. Think of one person right now who is facing their own Goliath and share this video with them. A single act of sharing hope can change someone's battle. And finally, subscribe and hit the notification bell to join us as we continue to uncover timeless truths that equip us for the challenges of today. And now, let's make this personal. The Valley of Elah was a real place, and your struggle is just as real. So I ask you, what giant are you facing today? The battlefield can feel lonely, but you do not have to stand alone. In the comments below, name your giant. Give it a name: fear, debt, illness. By writing it down, you are dragging it into the light and taking your stand. This comment section is more than a feature. It's our valley of support. I will be reading your comments, and our community will be here to encourage you. Let's stand with each other and watch our giants fall together.